evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, the public board hears calls to keep police out of schools. Plus, investigations into the province's Greenbelt plan. The NDP says Ontarians deserve answers. It's winter, but it really doesn't feel that way. We'll look at the negatives and the positives for some businesses that come with milder weather. And being political, but doing it with Lego. We'll do some building with a local Lego lover. The Public School Board continues to grapple with making a decision on whether to allow police officers back into schools. That program has been on pause since the pandemic started. A lengthy school board meeting last night included calls for the program to end. But an expert who works with at-risk youth says that would be a mistake. The CBC's TJ Deer reports.
That motion's carried.
The Public School Board took another step in their review of police and school program last night, voting 11-1 to hand the file to a committee for another review. That committee will be made of school administrators, students, community members, and police officers. The board says that liaison officers provide values-based teaching to students in school, as well as education on bullying, relationships, alcohol, and drugs. It's a program the Catholic Board continues to run. The Public Board started this review back in October. One speaker at Tuesday's meeting is a member of the board's committee on dismantling anti-Black racism. She wants the review to include the Anti-Black Racism Committee.
And interpersonal anti-Black racism, it is harmful for us to sit in these spaces every single day, especially with people who haven't necessarily understood what we're even talking about at this point. It's been a journey, it's been rough and it's been tough, but we're still here.
This speaker is leading a campaign to remove police from schools across the province. She doesn't believe police should be educators.
What we actually need is a spectrum of additional educators to actually continue within those roles alongside community-based partners. And police are not the folks who should be taking up those spaces within education.
Not everyone is celebrating, though. Youth Diversion is an organization that helps at-risk youth make life choices that do not get them in trouble with the police and the justice system. Their executive director says she's shocked and disappointed by Tuesday's decision, saying police officers do have a role to play in educating children.
There's value in having a non-confrontational discussion with a police officer who is in uniform to provide kids with an understanding that, they're doing their job, they're upholding the law, there are consequences to my actions, and I need to be aware of that.
The Public Board said policing programs are currently paused, and the committee would be formed and start work as soon as possible. No timeline was given for a decision. Windsor Police told CBC News they would respect the board's decision and that they'll always be available to them if needed. TJ Deer, CBC News, Windsor.
Ontario's Special Investigations Unit is investigating how police responded to a domestic call this week. Windsor Police went to an apartment in Amherstburg. No one answered when they arrived. Officers eventually entered the apartment with a warrant. Inside, they found an 80-year-old man seriously injured. The man was taken to hospital where he later died. The SIU is assigning 5 people to look into the case and will keep you updated as the investigation continues. We've also learned that a second suspect has been arrested for the attempted murder in Forest Glade. This is all related to what police describe as a targeted attack that left a woman with life-threatening injuries earlier this month. The first suspect was arrested last week in Amherstburg. A 48-year-old man was taken into custody yesterday in Brampton and was charged with attempted murder and 4 counts of conspiracy to commit murder and extortion. We've learned today that an elderly couple died during the massive snowstorm right before Christmas. You'll remember that holiday weekend blizzard left hundreds of cars stranded along the 401. The highway was closed for more than a day from Tilbury to London. Some people were also stranded inside the Chatham Walmart because of the weather, forcing them to spend the night inside the store. Now, the couple who died, they were in their 80s. Police say they were found outside of their home in Thamesville, but they don't know what exactly they were doing. Police in Chatham said they didn't notify the public about the 2 deaths at the time out of respect for the family's privacy. 2 investigations are going ahead into the province's controversial plan to remove land from the Greenbelt. Ontario's Integrity Commissioner and the Auditor General will both look into it. It follows requests from all 3 provincial opposition parties. Lorinda Redekop has the details.
Something smells fishy here, and Ontarians deserve answers.
Incoming NDP leader Marit Stiles sent requests to both the Integrity Commissioner and the Auditor General, both now investigating. The Integrity Commissioner finding reasonable and probable grounds to conduct an inquiry. However, it is not going ahead with a request by the Green Party leader, saying there were insufficient grounds. And it notes one difference between the two complaints. Ms. Stiles did not include the Premier as a subject of her request. Stiles does name Housing Minister Steve Clark in her request.
The government's change of heart, their sudden decision change is going to benefit and make a lot of money for a very few people.
This is after the government took some land out of the Greenbelt, opening it up for housing, a big switch from a previous promise. Some of that land changed hands in the months before. The Integrity Commissioner says there's no evidence either the Premier or the Minister advanced their private interest, but that the question is whether they advanced the interest of any of the landowners. A spokesperson for Clark says the minister looks forward to being cleared of any wrongdoing. In Stiles' request, she also raises questions about Clark's former chief of staff, who left last April, Luca Bucci, including whether there was improper lobbying. He became the CEO of the Ontario Home Builders Association last June.
That is an organization with strong ties to developers.
The other investigation by the Auditor General comes after a joint request by all three opposition party leaders, the government promising to fully cooperate and provide more detail. The Green Party leader acknowledges there are limits to what could come from either investigation. Both will result in a report.
But the court of public opinion is powerful, and the people of Ontario need to know the truth. There needs to be transparency and accountability around these land deals that do not pass the smell test.
The OPP says it's still conducting a review on whether it will investigate the government's Greenbelt plan. Loretta Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
The incoming NDP leader is in Windsor tonight. She's doing a meet and greet at the Unifor office, and tomorrow she will be on Windsor Morning. Nav Nanwa will interview Marit Stiles in the 7 o'clock hour, so you can tune in at 97.5 FM to check that out. Also in Windsor tomorrow, Premier Doug Ford, Minister of Health, and Deputy Premier Sylvia Jones will also join him. They'll have a press conference at 10:30 tomorrow morning, and we will carry that live online with a complete wrap-up of his visit tomorrow night right here on this program. And this follows Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's visit to our city yesterday, making it a big week for political leaders in Windsor. The NDP kicked off a 3-day caucus meeting in Ottawa today. New Democrat leader Jagmeet Singh wasted no time in taking aim at the Liberals and Conservatives, accusing both parties of putting workers' rights and Canada's healthcare system at risk. David Thurton has the details.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh talking to his base, going back to basics.
I believe that union membership and a union membership card is the fastest ticket to stability and prosperity.
As the voice of Labour in Parliament, Singh opened 3 days of meetings with MPs and staffers, defending the rights of workers and the public health system, which he says is under threat.
While Daniel Smith and Doug Ford and Heather Stephenson launch a mission to privatize public universal Canadian healthcare, Justin Trudeau does nothing, and Pierre Poilievre cheers them on.
Drawing a line on healthcare as Liberals signal they're ready to strike a deal with provinces and territories.
We all agree there should be strings attached. I think one of those conditions has to be straight up no privatization.
It's one of the many demands Singh has made under the Confidence and Supply Agreement with Liberals. In exchange for votes, Liberals commit to advance NDP priorities. This year, pharmacare, expanding dental care, and ensuring oil and gas workers have good-paying jobs as the world goes through an energy transition. Trudeau spoke about his commitment to those workers while speaking at an electric vehicle charging manufacturer.
The energy workers that we rely on, the natural resource workers, will continue to be essential parts of our economy moving forward, and this government will always be there to recognize their work and to support them into a world that is changing.
With Parliament set to resume in less than 2 weeks, the Liberals face the challenge of crafting a budget that satisfies the demands of the NDP and a health deal that satisfies premiers. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is making his pitch to win over Quebecers. He's touring the province this week. As Catherine Cullen tells us, Poilievre appears to have his work cut out for him.
As Pierre Poilievre tries to win over Quebecers, a hint at where he's starting from. No political slogan on his lectern. Instead, he simply wants people to know his name.
We have a new leader, the Honorable Pierre Poilievre.
That's despite a landslide leadership win where he clobbered former Quebec Premier Jean Charest.
Once he became leader, he almost went into hibernation and didn't seem to kind of seize the opportunity that presented itself to get himself known.
And while his poll numbers have grown in several provinces, he's struggling in this key battleground.
There is right now, no Pierre Poilievre effect in terms of voting intentions in the province.
Generations of Conservative leaders have tried making special appeals to Quebec. Stephen Harper recognized the Québécois as a nation. Erin O'Toole promised more powers on matters like immigration, winning him an endorsement from Quebec's popular premier.
C'est une bonne approche, l'approche de M. O'Toole.
But that didn't change Conservative fortunes in the province. Poilievre was asked what he would do to appeal to Quebecers.
Quelle est votre optique pour séduire les Québécois?
Mais je respecte l'autonomie du Québec.
Poilievre says he respects Quebec's autonomy, adding Quebecers share the concerns of the rest of Canada, like inflation, taxes, and government spending.
And that may end up very well yielding electoral success for him, so long as the economy is the top issue during the next general election campaign.
Though it's in Quebec that his attacks on Justin Trudeau are least likely to land.
In all of our polling, the province of Quebec is where that anti-Trudeau sentiment is the lowest.
Now, you can win a majority government without a big showing in Quebec. Stephen Harper did it in 2011. But the Conservatives have long felt that a swath of seats around Quebec City could be theirs. And those are the kind of numbers that could make or break a government. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
A lot of politics there. We do have one more story about politicians now, but really it's about a guy still having fun with Lego. Meet Riley Richard and his version of Windsor's city council and a custom car build that you might find familiar.
Oh, I really should have dusted these beforehand, but it's okay. All right, should just be another couple more seconds of setting up here, and I should be good to go.
I've been a huge fan of it ever since I was pretty much a small child. My whole family got into it, and by proxy, I got into it too. This is my most recent project. I basically recreated something that might be a little unconventional, but hey, with Lego, you can do whatever you want. I recreated our city council and including our mayor, Drew Dokins, right here. I'm basically replicating the photo of our city council that's up on the website right now. The biggest challenge would probably be the hair. The faces didn't really turn out to be much of a problem.
Is there anyone that sticks out as being the most difficult for you to find?
By far the most difficult to find, I would probably say would be two. It would be Gary Kashak here. There weren't a lot of pieces I had that were in the correct color to kind of mirror it. So I think I did a rough approximation here. I'd say it's still recognizable at a glance though. The easiest one to do was obviously our mayor. That obviously ended up not really being a problem at all. The other difficult one was actually Mr. Kieran McKenzie here of Ward 9. The beard initially ended up being a strange issue. I wanted to get like the proper like Santa beard piece on there. It didn't necessarily look right, so I just decided to forego it and go with one with just a standard beard printed onto the piece.
And you say you've been getting some great feedback since you posted these. Have you heard from anyone on City Council?
No, not yet actually. Considering this has just kind of been recently posted, I haven't heard from anyone on City Council yet, but I suppose I could reach out and let them know. I'm sure they get a kick out of it. Now, I'm a true Canadian and I'm a huge fan of the TV show Trailer Park Boys. My dad got me into it when I was way too young to be watching it realistically, but still, I've been a big fan of it ever since. And again, Lego will never ever touch that as long as I'm around, more than likely, so might as well do it myself. This is the car that the character Ricky lives in, which is notably missing the passenger side door and is just generally cluttered with a bunch of whatever somebody living in their old 1975 New Yorker would. And the top is removable too, so you can put any of the characters inside as well. So always got to think ahead with that. Here we have the main cast. We got Ricky, Julian, and Bubbles. All of them, each minifigure is kind of holding something relevant to their character. Because that's what Lego does with their minifigures. Whenever they release them, they always have sort of something for the character to hold on to, relevant to the theme of the character. So I kind of wanted to incorporate that here. Ricky's got a cigarette, Julian's got his trademark drink, and Bubbles has a kid.
That's awesome. Let's take a live look outside there. It's dark outside right now, but it's been gray all day, and those conditions are going to continue into the week along with some of that drizzle. We can expect more rain tonight and tomorrow. Colette Kennedy, she'll be here after the break with your full weather forecast. Stay with us. The mild winter we're having is hurting businesses that thrive on snow and cold, but as Dale Molnar reports, it also has its advantages.
So this would be a set of fly racing title heated gloves.
Brad Dixon, the co-owner of Extreme FX, says while the warm weather helps the sales of ATVs, it has hurt the sales of snowmobile accessories like helmets.
Quite a bit. I mean, we sold a few suits, a couple helmets, a couple heated gloves, but that's about it. Normally we're 3 to 4 times that.
The unseasonably warmer weather and lack of snow means fishermen who usually go ice fishing can continue to fish like it's summer.
So what do you think of the weather? Great, if you can get the boat out in January and catch some walleye and get home without freezing up, it's perfect.
With no ice on the Detroit River, the Coast Guard icebreaker Samuel Risley doesn't have much work to do. And while shipping companies still pay an icebreaking fee regardless, the ships can sail the lakes easily
So that's really good. That doesn't have ships stuck, crew members stuck. It means that the commodity is getting to market on time.
However, Barry says ice cover prevents evaporation, and without the ice, the lake levels could drop, meaning ships can't carry as heavy a load.
If the water levels do drop, we have to do what's called light load ships. So we have to use more ships to move the same amount of commodity we moved last year.
Meanwhile, the warmer temperatures are increasing attendance at the Ojibwe Nature Center and giving birders a better show for some types of birds, such as the bluebird and the great blue heron. Both can overwinter here, but are being seen in greater numbers this year.
So on the Holiday Beach Christmas bird count, they recorded over 108 great blue herons in the count circle, and that was a record high number. So previously, I think it was around 45 birds, so it's quite up this year.
Now, while the weather's been favorable for some types of birds, it's also been favorable for an unfavorable animal, rats. Rats usually like having lots of snow to keep them warm, but they don't need it with the warmer temperatures.
So it's actually good for the rats, and I guess not so good for us, because they will continue to be active during this time. People are still likely to see them, and they will still be reproducing at this time.
And Marie Abaldoni says they won't know how this winter will affect the rat population in the city until spring. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Bringing in Colette Kennedy now. I love seeing people making the most out of a situation. And the rats.
Yes,
well.
And it's, I don't know, maybe I misunderstood, but it sort of seemed like no matter what the conditions, it works out well for the rats.
Exactly.
If there's lots of snow, they have the insulation, it keeps them warm, it's working for them. Well, let's see if it works out okay for us too. Well, we've got a lot of things going on here. So with this system that's going to be moving in, I'll show you the current temperatures. We won't linger here. They're mild. They become even more mild, more than double that for the daytime high tomorrow. The winds will be picking up. They'll be shifting off towards the east. We'll have breezy conditions tomorrow through much of the day, but especially in the morning hours. And then as we get into the later afternoon, they're still strong, but nothing like what they'll be earlier in the day. So that's one component of this. The clouds have been trying to break up, and it really is like of no use to us. I guess I say it that way just because it's in the overnight hours and there's another system coming in just to reinforce everything anyway. So it's not like it brings us any sunlight as this next one is approaching. And really the timeline on this, it's going to come in closer to midnight. There are freezing rain warnings, and those are off to the east. But just for you to know, I always like to point things out if you're going to be doing any traveling. Also 5 to 10 centimeters of wet snow and mixing into eastern Ontario. What I do see this more of is as a rain event for southwestern Ontario, and at times some heavier rain pushing all along the north shore of Lake Erie. So I'm going to show you the rainfall accumulations because some of them are up around the 40 millimeter range. And not only that, but this is through the overnight tomorrow morning. There's a shot that comes through again tomorrow evening, and it's possible you could hear the rumble of thunder. Yeah, there might be a little bit with the higher temperatures and this coming through. Yeah, there might be a little bit of thunder that you hear, and that's going to put some of the heavier downpours or more significant rain that I'm talking about here as well. Backside, it does cool down enough to get into a bit of a mix, so some flurries or some wet flurries coming through as well. Still a lot of cloud cover into Friday. We'll try and carve some of that out late in the day to get some breaks, but I'm not crossing my fingers on that. Here's a look at some of those rainfall amounts. So Chatham-Kent getting close to that 40 millimeters of rain, and even for Windsor, 20-25 millimeters before we see that changeover. Look at how mild we're talking about for tomorrow. And then with the breezy conditions, maybe it's not going to be the wintry mix that's going to be found elsewhere in the province, but it's definitely not going to be pleasant either. Improvement later in the day. So 9, then we go down very close to freezing. We get that changing over a little bit. 2 degrees on Friday. And as we work forward, you're going to notice something here with the overnight lows that we're back into a situation, well, how about that, where we've got some cooler air and we're looking at readings below freezing.
There you go. Thanks
but
for
still
that
mild.
Still, yeah. Exactly. It's still like the highs are still above zero.
Yeah,
so that's
the rats
great.
are still happy.
Exactly. And the people. Luckily. Okay. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, New Year's resolutions from some companies to free up more time in a day. We'll tell you about that after the break. Some companies have made New Year's resolutions to cut back on endless meetings that seem to have taken over life at the office. CBC's Nisha Patel has more.
We are meeting today to discuss.
These TikTok users are taking on a common workplace frustration.
Ever wonder just how much time you might be spending in these never-ending meetings?
I guess I just get paid to go to meetings.
The purpose of today's meeting is to prepare us for next week's meeting.
Excessive meetings can be exhausting. Now, tech giant Shopify says it's canceling more than 76,000 hours of meetings from crammed calendars this month to boost employee productivity. Smaller organizations have been struggling with meeting madness too, especially since the start of the pandemic.
The frequency increased, the complexity of the meetings increased. It seems that we were in meetings constantly.
Which ones will be shorter?
This Toronto nonprofit has scrapped meetings on Monday afternoons and Fridays. Several times a year, they block off entire weeks to allow for deep work.
It's that uninterrupted space to really engage on those things that are the most important.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody.
Still, meetings can be valuable for team building and decision making, but they may be more productive with fewer people and a clear focus.
You see your entire calendar filled with meetings.
That's where a meeting designer can help.
People often don't think about timing thoughtfully, and they say, oh yeah, it's going to be an hour. And people just kind of default an hour. But do we really need an hour?
Vienna Blum teaches staff how to make meetings more effective. She's heard employees complain they spend so much time in meetings during the day, they can only finish their actual work at night.
It gets kind of dangerous for the organization in terms of potentially losing people's engagement in their job overall, and also just people feeling burnt out.
Some research suggests employees could skip 1/3 of their meetings, potentially saving big companies up to $100 million a year.
So it may be wise for employers and employees to streamline their meeting schedules and perhaps consider whether some of these could be replaced with just an email. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.